Right, a little bit of a late start for me, everybody. I think it must be from the weather that we're having down in the Eastern Cape. We had over 200 millimeters rain over the weekend. So it's absolutely crazy down here, and maybe that affected a little bit of the technology. But the show must go on. So, hello everybody, and welcome once again to Live at the Waterhole. We're first up, we were at Old Donyo, but we switched on over now to Tau in the Madikwe Game Reserve of the Northwest Province of South Africa. My name is Ralph Kirsten, and what does the bush hold in store for us today? Well, you'll have to sit back, relax, and watch as the animals come down to quench their thirst and cool off. And as per usual, please don't forget that this is a live and interactive experience, so we'd love for you to jump on board with us and send us through your questions and your comments. You can do that by going on the Wild Earth website and registering. You can also join the conversation on X, formerly known as Twitter, using the hashtag WildEarth. What is it that you'd like to see? What would you like to chat about? Whatever it is, wildlife related, send it on through. We'd love to hear from you. And just while we were getting everything sorted out there, I did hear a lovely call from a pearl-spotted owlet. One of my favorite calls in the bush, and sometimes calling during the day, but predominantly at night, when they go hunting for little birds. Well, they can be active, or crepuscular as we call it, active around dawn and dusk. As we see there, a nice herd of our birchals or plain zebra. So, and as I was mentioning that increment weather down in the Eastern Cape, there's been floods in the Uitenhage town, now known as Kariga, as well as in Port Elizabeth and East London. And that weather's now hitting up into KwaZulu-Natal. It's a major system that might affect quite a big part of the country. So I just hope that the people in those areas are able to batten down the hatches, as I've had to do over the weekend, because it seems like it's going to carry on for another week at least. So I'm just hoping that some of it may even reach into these parts here at Madikwe, because they really do need the rain. And Mercedes Bean once again with us, saying hello Ralph, happy Monday. Happy Monday straight back at you, Mercedes Bean. Hopefully we get some lovely wildlife scenery as well as sightings. Who knows what's in store? It's always lovely to look at the sort of intricate detail on the markings of the zebra, with a shadow stripe being quite particular of the Birchall zebra, and also for me I really love to see that mane of theirs that stands perfectly straight up, including the color that continues on through those hairs as well. It does look like there's a little bit of wind blowing through the bushes there. So it's not completely calm, but typical crisp winter's day, I would say. Yeah, quite a few more birds calling as well in the background. A little blue waxbill. I just heard a southern black tit as well. And chinspot batis. Now, Marisa Lowe saying, hello, Ralph. I look forward to spending time with you and the wildlife at the waterholes this afternoon. Yes, where else would you want to be? Awesome seeing what's happening at all the different waterholes and what the wildlife is up to. Sounds like a Natal spurfowl, as well as a white-browed scrub robin, potentially. Wonder if any of the crocodiles are out and about. They've been a little bit difficult to spot in these parts. Here we can see a couple of common moor hens, and it looks like some red-billed teals. Are they red-billed or they cape? No, I think they are red-bills. In the right light, definitely showing off a bit of red there on the bill. So Anna May asking, rain and floods in June, is that normal or just the effect of global warming? So Anna May, definitely normal. Look, no 2 days are the same, no 2 seasons are the same, but generally, especially down in the Eastern Cape, we have all year rainfall, and we actually have more rainfall in winter with these rolling cold fronts that come through. So generally that goes up the coast and very often doesn't quite make it to KwaZulu-Natal. However, this is such a big system that it's brought through. There's even snow on a lot of the peaks of the Drakensberg already and into Hogsback. And there was even reports that there may be snow up into the Highveld as well. So, you know, it's not the norm in the last or recent history or last, decade or so, maybe more than that, 2-3 decades, for there to really be rain up into those parts into winter. But it has occurred before, and it seems like this is one of those big systems that is going to continue on through. So I wouldn't say an effect of global warming. I would say that it's just that seasonal change, and not very regular, but it's nothing, crazily unusual. So I wasn't sure what this little ducky was that was sleeping here, but it seems like there he shows his bill now. I thought so. A yellow-billed duck. So not one of the teals. There's the Cape turtle or the ring-necked dove calling now. There's a couple of impala. That's nice. The younger rams. There's a black-winged stilt just foraging off on the right. Oh, grey go-away bird calling as well. And there's a blacksmith lapwing. So we've got a good number of birds already. There's that pearl-spotted owlet again. Alright, so nice start here, not only at Old Donyo, but also at Tau, but I think it's time to change of place and let's head on up to Victoria Falls. And lots of folks often want to see crocodiles. We've had quite a bit of movement of these here at the Victoria Falls Safari Lodge in this little pan. Been quite active. And here we can see at least two. One just here in the foreground looks a little bit smaller than the one a bit further up. See a sacred ibis on the left and on the right of that crocodile. And there's those Natal spurfowl again. And here's some red-billed buffalo weavers as well. I think it might be one of the storks just hiding in the bushes above that crocodile. Is it a yellow-billed stork, potentially? I think so. It's that time of the day where we do get a lot of the raptors coming in here, and the vultures, and the marabou storks, and all sorts. They've been coming in for their little snack at the lodge that they get around 1 o'clock. And we did have quite a big flock of great white pelicans at this waterhole, and they stuck around for a couple of days too. So for some people that was a new bird to their list, and not something you see every day. Another robin calling as well. I'm sure it will be quite a lot hotter up in these parts too, with them not really having the effects, especially yet, of this big system that's moved through South Africa coming up from the Cape. It has affected Namibia with there being very icy inland temperatures. And when it's very cold like that inland, very often then you have the berg winds moving down towards the coast, and it can be very hot. So you have a real contrast when that happens. So Annabelle asking, do crocodiles pose a threat to giraffe when they go for a drink? Annabelle, potentially. Once again, ambush and opportunistic hunters, they will pretty much take what they can get, but a giraffe is quite big. So I would suggest that normally a younger giraffe would obviously be better, sort of suited. But I wouldn't put anything past a crocodile and having a go at a giraffe, as you could almost see the crocodile hanging off the lips of a giraffe as it stands up. It would struggle to bring it into the water, which is obviously their killing technique. But crocodiles can't feed underwater, so they will literally just drag the animal into the water and then do their death roll. Once they've got a good grip on it and got it into deep enough water, and that will then drown the animal, and once it becomes lifeless, sometimes they do then store the meat below, where there has come stories of sort of caves underneath the water where crocodiles store their meat, but it is a bit of a cachet. They'll eat what they can initially until they're full. Once they've digested, then they'll go back for more. But the sort of idea that they prefer rotten meat is a fallacy. And and also that they go and feed underwater on that rotten meat, because they literally cannot feed underwater. They do need to come up to the surface to be able to swallow the meat down. So that wouldn't be possible either. So that just dispel those myths. But definitely using that and the water as the a real big part of killing the animal and the prey species. So a bit difficult for them to bring a giraffe sort of down into the water. They're quite strong. As we're starting to see now the birds circling and getting ready, they pretty much know that the meat and the food should be on its way. So these are the early comers. It won't be too long and that meat will be put out for them. And then it will be an absolute feeding frenzy down here in the foreground. Okay, but while things are still a little bit settled here, nice little catch up with that crocodile, I think let's change of place and let's head back to Old Donyo. Oh, we've got another big bull that's come in for a drink. Regardless of the time of year in these parts, generally hot all year round. So the animals will normally come in for a drink regardless of summer or winter. Whereas when it gets very cold in sort of the areas south and into southern Africa, those days then generally tend to see not as many elephants coming through and cooling off. Very much like us, generally not going onto the beach when it's rainy and cold. Well, like we say in South Africa, when the Wali's come down to the coast, we always know that they are Wali's because it doesn't matter what the weather is. They're out on the beach and having a swim. We always know that the locals wouldn't be doing that. We wait for the good days. But the guys on holiday, they need to make the best of it. So we don't have elephants on holiday, though, so they're pretty much all the same. And last week we had 1 ton, the massive famous tusker that came through here, spent some lovely time at the waterhole, and it was an absolute treat. So Gina Z asking, are drongos the only birds elephants have some sort of a relationship with? So Gina Z, not the only one. There's a few more. You do sometimes see oxpeckers on elephants, but generally not very much. They will go on them sometimes. So a little bit of a relationship there, but as I say, not very much. So drongos, definitely. And it's all those birds that are opportunistic insectivorous hunters. So the ones going for the insects. And they use the elephant as sort of a vehicle that would be bumping out the insects. So they follow along with them. So the likes of egrets from cattle egrets to even the intermediate and the great, but more so the cattle egrets will follow on with elephants. As they bump the insects out, well, then they move in and feed on them. The same with the little wagtails as well. So they'll move in and around the feet of the elephant as they move along and pick out those insects, as the elephants do the job for them of bumping them out of the grass as they walk. As you can imagine, insects keep trying to get out of their way and exposing themselves. And so those little insectivorous birds will then feed on them. Some of the swallows might even do the same. We have quite a lot of swallows that use game vehicles. They've learnt, obviously, in the last recent history, that game viewers moving through these areas also bump the insects up, and so they continuously fly around the vehicle, even as you're driving, and pick out those insects as they try to get out of the way of the vehicle. A ringneck dove just made its way in there. Yep, and off it goes. So just get a little bit closer. See this elephant in more detail. It's quite grey, not much light coming through. You see lots of clouds around. You can see those acacia tortillas off in the background. Now Vachilia. And a nice close-up view of this elephant bull. Let's just get the camera to focus. Lovely detail of the skin. You can see the eyes now quite clearly every now and then. Beautiful eyelashes. Can you hear some oxpeckers calling now? I wonder if there's some giraffe or antelope about. Now, speaking of relationships, with elephants and other animals and different symbiotic relationships, etc., found a nice little write-up on the Kruger Gate Hotel, and they speak of the indispensable and popular oxpecker. Oxpeckers are known to have a few astounding symbiotic relationships within a lot of different game reserves, and these small parasitic birds form remarkable bonds with elephants, impala, and rhinos. And the cheeky red-billed oxpeckers, named Askari Wakifaru, the rhino's guard in Swahili, perch themselves on their mammal friends to feast on a buffet of ticks and parasites. Across picturesque open grasslands, woodlands, and riverine, visitors can marvel at seeing the loud oxpeckers grooming service in action. They're like the animal spa therapists of the Kruger. And the duty of the oxpecker doesn't stop with ridding their friends of pests, which they don't really do either. They just help alleviate. These avian custodians are also especially helpful as unlikely security guards. Astonishingly, researchers revealed that the non-vocal black rhino, one of the majestic endangered species in South Africa, can evade human detection with the help of oxpeckers in up to 50% of encounters. Researchers found that oxpeckers improved the rhino's human detection distance by 9 meters, signaling that integrating more of these versatile birds with rhino populations could assist in a broader rhino safety approach. It's a spellbinding sensation when you hear these birds let out a loud screech on top of their rhinos to warn of oncoming danger. The rhino have weaker eyesight and as such rely on other senses to stay safe. So once they hear this unmissable alert, they know to get a move on, and they almost always do. So not only do they help alleviate parasites, they also help to alert them to humans, but also, which is probably their biggest problem currently, but any predators as well. Now, Jet asking, can you see an elephant baby wriggle inside the belly when a cow is pregnant? Jet, I've seen many pregnant cows, female elephants, and I can't say that I ever have, but that's not to say that you can't. Maybe I just haven't looked close enough. But I'll do some checking and see if there is any evidence of somebody actually witnessing some kind of movement within the belly. I haven't, so I would have to say from my experience, no. And you see, there's the giraffe that the oxpeckers let us know was around. Once again, a very good indicator of animals in your vicinity. It's quite interesting. I'm just looking into sort of different gestation periods, etc. And now that we're talking about babies in the belly of elephants, I haven't been able to find any evidence of being able to see them in the mother before they're born. That reminded me, I did go to visit a very small natural history museum in Maputo. And apparently it's the only museum in the world that has each and every embryo per month of elephants. And it was incredible to see, very well preserved, from month 1 to month 22, because that's how long their gestation period is. So 22 different baby elephants, probably coming as a result of either culling in the old days, or even as a result of war in Mozambique, and they were able to get the babies and preserve them. And incredible to see. And I think it's the only place in the world. So that's just a little soundbite, a little tidbit. But also now, having found a nice article on National Geographic, speaking of elephants carrying their babies for 2 years and more astonishing animal pregnancies. From keeping backup embryos to being perpetually pregnant, many animals have incredible adaptations for ensuring that their young will survive. More than 5,400 mammal species roam the planet, running the gamut in size and appearance, from tiny bumblebee bats and 100-foot-long blue whales to spindly-fingered eyes and scaly pangolins. That astonishing diversity is also on display in how mammal mothers undergo pregnancy and birth, from the domestic dog bearing pups from different fathers in one litter, to the swamp wallaby carrying babies in 2 separate uteruses. Intelligent, long-lived species often have lengthy pregnancies, which allows ample time for fetal development. The African elephant is the longest pregnancy at a whopping 22 months. The baby elephant is born very complete, and it can walk long distances. Similarly, the 5 species of rhinoceros are pregnant an average of 16 months, resulting in a fully developed calf. Some marine mammals, such as the bottlenose dolphin, carry their young for between 10 to 12 months, which means the calves can keep up with their mother from the get-go. On the other end of the spectrum, the animal with the shortest known gestational period is the Virginia opossum. North America's only marsupial can give birth to an average of 8 to 9 infants just 11 to 13 days after mating. And each of these pinkies, so called for their finger-like appearance, are the size of a dime. For us, it's probably a 50-cent piece. They make their way from the birth canal to the pouch to continue their development. And animals with shorter gestation periods have multiple babies, like your typical house mouse, a breeding machine that's pregnant for just 19 days, yielding between 12 to 20 babies every 2 months. Because the environment is very dangerous and constantly changing, the glut increases the chances that some will make it to adulthood. Domestic dogs and cats, as well as their wild counterparts, also bear multiple babies in a short period of time. The typical domestic dog gestation is 63 days, resulting in an average of 5 to 6 pups. Pups in a litter can have multiple fathers, a phenomenon called superfecundation. Because female dogs release more than one egg when they ovulate, and their cycle can last a week, they can mate with different males to fertilize as many eggs as possible. That's why some dogs can have mixed breed litters. A poodle, for instance, can give birth to a poodle beagle mix and a poodle retriever mix at the same time. More than 130 mammal species such as bears, seals, sea lions, and several marsupials can delay a pregnancy until conditions are just right. That could mean favorable weather, an abundance of food, or after older competing siblings have set off on their own. In this scenario, called delayed implantation, the sperm meets the egg, it fertilizes, and it becomes an early embryo, but it does not implant. The fertilized egg remains in a suspended state called embryonic diapause. Now, Steller sea lions of the northern Pacific can postpone giving birth to a single pup until food is plenty and conditions are mild. In the summer, the Steller sea lions give birth on land, then come into heat just 2 weeks later, when they can get pregnant again. And the egg gets fertilized, and another 11 and a half months go by before they give birth again. During this state of suspended growth, mom returns to the water to forage, and they're actually eating for most of their adult life. And it's just amazing that they have the resources to be able to go through all of that. All 4 species of kangaroo have 2 separate uteruses, an adaptation that allows them to carry a backup embryo. And after giving birth to their jelly bean-sized hairless joey, females often quickly get pregnant again in the other uterus. And as the little one matures in mom's pouch, she keeps the other fertilized embryo in arrested development until the sibling is weaned and can enter the pouch. Kangaroo doe can produce milk with different nutritional values for 2 joeys of different ages, and she has 4 teats from which the 2 joeys can suckle. If a female loses a joey, then the embryo that's in diapause resumes development so they can be more reproductively successful and have more offspring without having to wait a whole year. So while much is known about reproduction and mating in the animal world, what happens inside the womb is more of a mystery. That's why more scientists are increasingly turning to advanced technology to see what happens as an animal develops in utero. Using 4D imaging on a pregnant captive African lion, for instance, they discovered a protective hammock-like structure in which the cubs lie inside the lioness's womb. When a lioness is hunting prey like a zebra, it's likely to get kicked in the abdomen. These challenges would normally kill the baby, but it doesn't because nature designed a suspension system to reduce the impact of these challenges. So if anyone was wondering if pregnant female lions don't hunt, they do, and they've got a real solution to protect their babies as well. That elephant now seemingly drunk his fill. I think he's going to move off. Now, Tino was asking, is there anything that elephant calves learn from male elephants? I think the first thing that they would learn is to keep out of their way. But they don't really spend too much time with the herd. And I think a lot of the learnings, most of the learning, if not all, would come from all the females within the group. And it's generally only those bulls that will later, once they get to around about their teenage years, that they start to learn from those adults a lot more, the bulls I mean, and start to even follow them and learn, the ways of the wild, where the waterholes are, where the best feeding is, where to go when, different times of the year and seasons and different levels of resources. So I think initially, quite similar to humans, most of the initial learnings come from the mother. Later on, then they start tending to learn from dad. I think these may be laughing doves. couple of flies and bugs buzzing around as well. Well, this one closest to us is the emerald spotted wood dove. So it's two different species hanging together there. A weaver come in now. There's lovely long white thorns on the acacias. And just imagine being a giraffe and having to feed in amongst that lot. We often see elephants just grabbing a whole branch of that, throwing it in their mouth and eating it all. So that doesn't bother them at all. I've had one of those thorns, a nice big one, go right through my foot. I had flip-flops on, as we call them, pluckies, locally known. And I was up near in the northern parts of Namibia, in one of the ephemeral rivers, the Waterholes, and I was moving around the camp, setting it up, and I stood on a very big one. It went right through my plucky, right through my foot. Not fun. That I can tell you, but extremely sharp. I very often also use them as toothpicks when they're out there. And they have been known also to be used as a replacement for stitches. So if you have a very big wound and you're not able to get to hospital quick enough, you're stuck out in a remote area, you can use those and sort of pierce it through the skin and help to keep a wound tightened up and closed. Also, a lot of these acacia trees are bush encroachers, so if left to their own devices, they can, very quickly overrun an area. That's why it's very often important that the likes of elephants sort of keep them in check. But what we do as conservationists is we use those bush encroachers, especially with thorns like that, for brush packing. So any areas that will be eroded and starting to erode, we'd then go and cut areas back, almost simulating the likes of elephants, and helping just keep areas open, and then use those because those thorns dig into the ground. So you lay them opposite the flow of the water, and that definitely helps to stem that and then stop the erosion. So excellent brush packing material. So that big group of birds there, I'm pretty sure, were wattled starlings outside of breeding plumage. You often see them in those big flocks. Quite similar to Hartlaub's babblers, but I'm pretty sure those were the wattled starlings outside of breeding plumage. It's quite incredible. They only get the wattles when they are in breeding plumage. So Phil from Brighton asking, do thorns usually mean that the tree is poisonous? No, Phil. It's a predator response by the tree to protect itself from the likes of browsers, who very often browse on their very juicy and palatable leaves. So it's a response to, lots of time of being predated upon. And I would say it's more an indicator that the plant actually has potentially, you know, overly predatable leaves on it. So for me, it would indicate that a plant has tasty leaves and the animals love it. So they're trying to protect themselves with those big thorns. The more thorny they are, the more potential there is for animals, really feeding on them a lot. So, and you also find a lot of trees that when they're young, they're full of thorns, but once they reach a specific age, they actually then start to lose those thorns because they don't need them anymore, and they're almost getting out of the reach of a lot of the browsing animals, and then they don't need the thorns anymore and expend energy on that, and they rather than the leaves themselves, which will then obviously gain them more food, and they'll be able to grow quicker than wasting energy on protecting themselves. So gone a little bit quiet here, apart from all the insects and the birds. Here come some superb starlings, but I think we'll stick with the birding theme for now, and let's go back to Vic Falls. Some of the hooded vultures, and also white-backed vulture there off on the right. I think I might have seen a marabou stork moving off in the background. So, oh, this one's got its wings lovely outstretched, and now it's just trying to dry off. So just something further on that evolution of thorns as a result of predation. And Wikipedia say that it has been proposed that thorny structures on plants may have first evolved as a defense mechanism in plants growing in sandy environments that provided inadequate resources for fast regeneration of the damage created by the animals feeding on them. So definitely seen it on a lot of trees when they're young, full of thorns, and as they then get bigger, they start to lose them. So it's a real response, I would say, from the tree to protect itself from predation, and more so on those ones that are heavily predated upon, having the more adequate thorns on them. Because I would say that if the plant is poisonous, that would be its anti-predator sort of evolution already. So then it wouldn't need to necessarily waste energy on producing thorns as well. And we look at the likes of euphorbias, for instance, very common out in the desert and would be heavily predated upon if they didn't have their very poisonous milky latex. But we've seen that we even have animals circumventing that as well. And I've witnessed it myself. The Euphorbia damarana, highly toxic, not quite as toxic as the Euphorbia virosa. However, it doesn't have any thorns on it whatsoever. And I think the animals have evolved a stomach acid that can neutralize the proteins in the poison, because we see black rhino, sometimes kudu and gemsbok, as well as porcupine, feeding and literally drinking up that milky latex. So not only is it not poisonous to them, they actually enjoy it, and it has seemingly no adverse effects. The black rhino love it so much that we call it the rhino ice cream, because you often see black rhino, if you know where to look, out in the desert that have been feeding on the Euphorbia damarana, having this milk that's running all the way down their chin, as if they were feeding or eating ice cream. And that same poison would kill you and us and humans within a couple of hours. We know of quite a few accidents where people mistakenly took dried Euphorbia damarana branches, as they didn't realize that it was Euphorbia, and used it for firewood. And obviously that concentrates in the smoke, and so they cooked their meat on this, and every single person within the group was found dead next to the fire. So they obviously didn't even have time to move away from it, so it was quite quick. And that just serves as a reminder to us not to mistakenly use that wood for fires. Lovely view on these hooded vultures. Now, Phil from Brighton asking, what specific lining do vultures have to be able to feed on carcasses? I'm not quite sure what you mean by lining, Phil. I've done a little bit of digging and found a lovely article on Africa Geographic speaking on, this sort of topic, and saying that when one thinks about vultures, one envisions a bald-headed, bloodthirsty scavenger waiting for something or someone to perish. We've been brought up to believe that evil surrounds vultures, and this has led to cinematography portraying the species in a negative and unloved light. This has most certainly contributed to the species being disliked and misunderstood by many of us. And 20 years ago, this is obviously the author, Kerry Volter, saying, I had no appreciation for vultures, and I did not care for them much, let alone understand them. And I most certainly had no inkling that I would be dedicating my life to saving such an unappreciated and misjudged species. They are our natural garbage collectors, and we owe them our gratitude for keeping our environment balanced. Vultures are classified into two groups, the Old World and the New World vultures are found in North and South America and are represented by 7 species belonging to 5 genera. Old World vultures are found throughout the continents of Africa, Asia, and Europe and are represented by 16 species belonging to 9 genera. However, the two groups are not genetically closely related, but instead their similarities are due to convergent evolution, or when species have different ancestral origins but have developed similar features. Old World vultures belong to the family Accipidae, which also includes the eagles, buzzards, kites, and hawks. New World vultures belong to the family Cathartidae, that includes condors. Significant difference between the two groups is that Old World vultures do not have a good sense of smell and thus locate their meals by sight, whereas New World vultures have a keen sense of smell and sharp eyesight. Both old and New World vultures are scavenging birds, feeding mostly from carcasses of dead animals. However, some have broad food habits, and in addition to carrion, will also consume garbage and even excrement. Some even feed on fruit. Vultures seldom attack a healthy living animal, but may kill a wounded or sick animal. Particular characteristic of many vulture species is a bald head devoid of feathers, and most researchers suggest that this is because it would be difficult to maintain a feathered head and keep it clean from all the blood and other fluids picked up while feeding on a carcass. However, recent research theorizes that a bald head can also help with thermoregulation. I would add that it also helps too, because if you think of feathers, they've got to point in one direction. And I would say that for aerodynamics, they need to point backwards. So if they had to stick their head into a carcass, those feathers would be pointing backwards, and they would find it difficult to retrieve their head back out of the carcass with the feathers being directed in the wrong direction. So vultures are opportunistic feeders, and when the prey is abundant, they'll gorge themselves until their crop is full, after which they'll sit in a half-torpid state to digest their food. Most species have powerful hooked beaks that are used to tear the hide, muscle, and bone from carcasses. And when vultures of different species descend on a carcass, as we've seen here at Vic Falls, it may look like a first-come, first-served frenzied mess, but there's actually a strict hierarchical feeding structure based on body size and strength of beak. Vultures with powerful beaks, such as the dominant lappet-faced vultures, are the first to the carcass, tearing it open to allow other vultures to feed, such as the white-backed vultures and white-headed vultures, who will gorge on the soft tissue of the carcass. Then the smaller vultures will usually wait for the scraps left behind by the larger, more dominant species. All vultures have very long, broad wings that allow them to soar gracefully at great heights, catching the thermals and remaining aloft for hours with minimal effect. With a keen eyesight, they can scan for carrion or spot other vultures descending to prey from miles away. Battler eagle is one of those very good indicators that they watch. When it comes to nesting, old world vultures build large platform nests made out of sticks in trees or on cliffs, and they use the same nest for several years, taking turns sitting while their partner finds food. The majority of old world vultures incubate a single egg at a time. Vultures generally do not have strong feet or legs, so they're unable to carry food back to their young. Instead, they gorge themselves on the food, filling up their crop, and upon returning to the nest, will regurgitate the food for the young to eat. All vultures play an essential ecological role in the ecosystem by disposing of dead carcasses and decreasing the spread of diseases from animal remains that would otherwise rot. Unfortunately, the majority of species are facing a continual and rapid decline in numbers due to a variety of threats, which is not good news for the future state of the ecosystem. However, here in Vic Falls, they're really doing their best to encourage more vultures into the area, and also just giving them a bit of a respite and a snack on a daily basis to help them get through, and also to alleviate any kind of potential poisoning that may occur from poachers, as well as indiscriminate farming measures. So, lovely little group of kudu also coming into the zone, and one magnificent bull there. Gina Z asking, why are vulture numbers slowly decreasing? Is tracking and protecting them the way rhinos are protected is much harder? Yeah, it's much more difficult, Gina Z, because they've got wings. So they're not earthbound, and they can literally fly thousands of kilometers to different places. So the biggest issue it comes from both, as I say, indiscriminate farming methods as well as poachers, because the poachers, if they shoot an animal or there's any kind of carcass, who spots it first? The vultures. So they start circling, and it's a perfect indicator for anti-poaching groups to watch where the carcasses are, move in there and find your poachers. So what the poachers do to circumvent this is they shoot an animal, they poison it, and then the vultures come in, they feed on it, and you can have hundreds of vultures dying just as a result of one poisoned carcass. So that's one thing. And then it's also from similar reason, but with the farmers that would poison. Firstly, they put a poisoned carcass down for the predators, such as jackals, caracal, even leopards and lions. It's a very easy way. You don't need to sit there and wait for the animal. You don't need to build a very intense trap. You can just literally put the meat there. Those scavengers will all come in at night and feed on it. But it's indiscriminate. Everything that feeds on that carcass will die, and that will include the vultures as well. So, as I say, biggest problem being poachers and those nasty farming methods. A bit of laziness, I would say, but we always need to try and work with the same said farmers to try and change their methods. But sometimes it's quite expensive and difficult, and when your livelihood's on the line, we can't always point the finger. We've got to try and work together, and you've got to understand the person, where he lives, and his issues and problems as well. But the wildlife are always the ones that suffer. So I think just in terms of those problems, here at Vic Falls at least got a lovely conservation program and supplying this vulture restaurant for them, and then obviously trying to spread the word of not poisoning carcasses and finding alternative methods. Lovely little sighting this, and that's a good looking bull with his girls. All right, so lovely stop in here at Vic Falls as always. But I think it's time to change of place. Let's go back to South Africa, this time to the Greater Kruger Park and Naledi Dam. We're joined by what seems like a middle-aged, maybe a little bit less, elephant bull. Oh, hello. Jeepers. He just about got sprayed there. He doesn't look like a happy chappy and looks like to be quite wet behind his legs there, or in between them. See how he's also hanging his trunk over his tusk. I would suggest that this chap is in must. He's making all the signs of it. And there's just a bit of a buzz there. Oh, hello, there's a leopard. So we switched on over to Rosie's pan, and this is what I was saying. We would always need to be on the alert for predators moving around during the day. He's just moved off to the left there. Not sure, male or female. Just a very brief sighting. Seems to have slinked off. There it is. Still walking along that game path. Just see that, what I called a little white flag on the end of their tail. That's often what I've always piqued my interest in the bush as I've been driving around. Just that little tip of the tail. Fantastic. One of our first leopards. I think it's maybe the second that we've had on live at the waterhole. Obviously not as active at this time of the day that you would expect during the later hours, darker hours, cooler hours. It's heading along a game path there. Difficult to keep up with. And I think it's going to be moving off now. But we got a glimpse. So that one's in the bag. I'm pretty sure that's the last we'll see of it, but it might poke out a little bit further off on the right, walking along that game path. There's potential, but it might be quite far away. You see, you never know what to expect. And with the weather coming in a little bit increment now, getting cooler, we might see less elephants, but we've got the potential chance of seeing more predators. And, well, over the last little while, that's 100% more for me because I haven't had predators for a while on the Waterhole show. And as always, very good birding here, just on the edges of the water. And in this particular spot, you see the little twin spots, lots of little wax bills, some special little birds coming through. Often have some mannikins and finches in amongst the wax balls and twin spots. Looks like a bit of bullying going on there now. Is that a sparrow? Oh, and of course fire finches as well. There's a little blue waxbill with a turquoise breast. There was one. So Tristan asking, do bird parties choose these areas because they are mineral rich? Tristan, in this case, I would say no. It's coming in to have a drink. And with these twin spots, mannikins, wax bills, they're all very small little birds, and they prefer to stay in the thickets because, and in numbers as well. And so I think this spot is just perfect for them in that it's close to the thicket. They can very quickly fly into the brush and get away from any predatory birds, which is mainly what they're trying to evade. The likes of pearl-spotted owlets, falcons, sparrowhawks, all sorts would be targeting them, especially here at the water where they're quite exposed. So for them, they've got nice cover. They've also got a little sort of pool area where the water is not deep and it comes out, onto the side here. So I think it's just quite comfortable for them and a perfect spot to have a relatively relaxing drink and a wash. That's what it's all about. It's about the water here and the cover and sort of the drinking and splashing site as well. So those are the things I think that has made them prefer this little corner where this puddle is now formed. A very big part of the feather maintenance is bird bathing. I'm trying to get rid of some of that excess preen oil. And also, just getting rid of some of the dust, maybe, and even the some of the parasites that they may have on them. They do get some fleas and mites as well. I think this one with the yellow that's coming is actually a canary. Right, so birding has been the name of the game, but let's change that up and let's head on back to Old Donyo. Where once again we have our good friend 1 ton. Now you can sit back, relax, and watch as one of the largest elephants on the planet, especially tusk-wise, is gracing us with his presence. And another one coming in to join. Not quite as big as 1 ton, but a big tusker nonetheless. Those are huge. And Mercedes Bean saying, and there's our boy. Oh, and joined by another. Not quite big as him. But just about. One ton coming around our side. Looks like he's going to have a dust bath. It's become a regular character here at Old Donyo. Now, I found an article from the Big Life Foundation, and this was written in February 13 of 2024 this year. Speaking of 1 ton twice treated. And we've known 1 ton for more than 25 years. His calm demeanor belies a celebrity status as one of Africa's dwindling super tuskers, and it's hard not to be moved by an encounter with this special elephant. So we'd be lying if we didn't pay special attention to his well-being. When he was spotted recently with a nasty wound on his neck, we wasted no time calling for a professional medical opinion. A Kenya Wildlife Service vet unit, funded by the Sheldrick Wildlife Trust, was quick to respond and decided that the wound needed treatment. Based on the size and depth of the puncture, it likely resulted from sparring with another bull elephant. This isn't the first time this has happened. He was treated back in 2021 for a similar injury. Bull elephants will sometimes fight for dominance, and such fights can be extremely violent, and serious wounds are not uncommon. We'll continue to monitor 1 ton's recovery, but as of today, he's looking good. And guess that Old Donyo Lodge, as well as Wild Earth and African viewers, can expect to see him resume his reign over the local waterhole, where much to everyone's delight, he's a frequent visitor. And so that being from February, I haven't even seen any wound on him, so I think he's 100% recovered. Spencer saying this is a waterhole show. Absolutely. We've had a leopard and we've got 1 ton. What more could we ask for? Sierra Delta saying, how many liters do you think they get in one drink? Sierra, they can drink more than 100 liters in one sitting. Doesn't seem to be much drinking going on anymore. They're just more so cooling themselves off and getting a lovely wash. It looks like 1 ton has had enough, and he's ambling off. Seemingly soon to be followed by his mate. Who we could probably call 3/4 ton. Regardless, how special was that? I seriously enjoyed it. So Granny Mango wants to know, how come we never see the elephants drinking peacefully alongside the giraffe? Why do they avoid each other when they aren't competing? So Granny Mango, it wasn't long ago that there was a bull elephant in must here, and he came along when there was already a giraffe drinking there, and I don't know, for whatever reason, I think it's just because of that 60 times the testosterone within the elephant bull that was in must. He attacked the giraffe and he punctured it with its tusk, impaling it, and I think it wasn't long after that the giraffe actually died. So you can understand why the giraffe are nervous of the elephants. They can very easily be injured and as a result even die, as we witnessed. So that was just the perfect example as to why the giraffe are nervous regardless of whether they're competing or not, because you never can tell the mood of the elephant. And that unlucky giraffe bore the brunt of a bull elephant in must. They do take their frustrations out on other animals, but most are nimble enough and quick enough to get away. This giraffe was busy drinking at the time that it got attacked for no reason whatsoever, except for the elephant's aggressive mood that it was in because of the current, or its state of affairs at that moment. So a shame. The giraffe really didn't deserve it. But now we know why. They keep well clear. Okay, so now that the Ellies have moved off, I think we'll do the same, and let's go back to the Madikwe Game Reserve and Tau. Where one of our flat dogs has come out of the water to sun itself. You can see it has been lying up on the bank on this side of the rock, and it's slowly but surely moved on to the other side as per the tracks. It's quite chilly this time of year, so we do often see the crocodiles out of the water a little bit more so in winter, trying to get their energy from the sun. Being ectothermic. So crocodiles for me are a little bit like lions, in the sense that when you see them, they're normally not doing very much, especially lions during the middle of the day. And I don't think we're going to be seeing this crocodile doing very much either. But nice to see it nonetheless. And I by no means say that that's a bad thing. It's just the way of the animal. And so we're observing them in their natural habitat. Lions, I wouldn't say lazy, they're energy efficient, as are crocodiles. Probably more so. Oh, looks like there's a little bit of internal politics with the teals. And the black-winged stilt carries on doing its thing. Okay, I think that's a nice check-in to see the crocodile here at Tau. But let's change once again back to the Greater Kruger Park, and this time to King's Camp. So we initially went to Comfort's Dam in Kimberley. It is also with a K, but we got it right now, and we're at King's Camp. More breeding herd of ellies. And a couple of Egyptian geese. Anyway, camera not playing along there, so we've headed on back to Tau. Unfortunately, because it's nice to see those breeding herds coming in there at King's Camp. So just have a bit of a scan about, see what else we can find. There's our largest goose of the region, spur-wing goose. This one's been hanging about on its own. There's a red-knobbed coot. There's the grey heron. You can see a lot of the water lilies there. So it is, as I suggested, not so much elephant activity in South Africa because of the drop in temperature over the last couple of days. So they're not quite as hot and bothered as they normally are, forcing them to come down and cool off. And some more kudu. Oh, we can hear the pearl-spotted owlet once again in the background. Of course, a nice herd of impala there as well. So a lot less activity in that bush now as well, with the weavers having gone through with their breeding, and the chicks would have fledged now already as well. Alright, so as always, lovely to stop in here at Tau, but let's head back to the Greater Kruger Park and Cat Eye. got a troop of Papio ursinus. Check my baboon. Oh, that one's got half tail, a real battle axe. I wonder if he had it bitten off by a leopard. African fish eagle calling off as well. Oh, so this troop is actually a little bit bigger than I first thought. Quite a few youngsters there. It looks like some making their way, leaving the area of the waterhole. Some hanging around still, though. And a bit of rough and tumble. And the youngsters playing and having a feed as well. Little youngster jumping on his mom's back. They are very cute and fun to watch. Always up to something. Causing trouble as well. So we saw a leopard, my first on live at the waterhole. And you know, I have to mention that it took me 4 years of guiding before I saw my first leopard. So, you know, it's always interesting for me, you know, folks obviously pay to go into the hot spots where leopards are. But I sort of almost felt like I earned the right to see and find leopards after having taken me 4 years to see my first. So I've seen hundreds since, but yeah, I always remember the first time I saw one, and I'll always remember the first time I saw a leopard on this show as well. Even though we didn't get to have much of a sighting on it, it still counts and it's still special. So it looks like they're all on their way out of the area. And well, it's also not long till the end of the show as well. So I hope you've all enjoyed it. I think it's been a special one, especially with the leopard and 1 ton making their appearances. And now seeing these baboons as well. So like I say in the beginning, you never know what to expect, what the bush is going to throw at you. And today is no different. So I've enjoyed it. I hope you have too. And of course, thanks for joining us. Thanks to the wildlife for putting on the show for us. It keeps us coming back for more. And of course to the whole Wild Earth crew as well for making it possible. There's a couple of terrapins just bobbing about in the water there. Residents of this waterhole. And of course later on, no, I don't think there will be a sunset safari today, but there will still be lots of action coming your way. And so don't go anywhere. The wildlife show continues. And I'll be back here, same place, same time tomorrow. So I hope you join us once again. We're live at the waterhole. We'll see what surprises are in store for us then. Could we get a last minute or last few second leopard? You never can tell. But maybe that's taking it a bit too far. So no more luck on the leopard, but that's it from me for now, folks. Give it horns, bush greetings. Cheers.